Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the White Belt MMA podcast, and it's an absolute pleasure to have on the show again. Cage Times lightweight Joe Giannetti, who's coming off a big win for this past, it was like 2 weeks ago or a week ago on July 2nd.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. And yeah, man, you got a win with a submission, guillotine, and I know this intro is kind of a shitty intro but hey, Joe, how you doing, man? Since the last time we talked.
I'm doing good, man. Coming off another W, can't complain. Working on the next one.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. So yeah, man, like Joe, like we were talking about it off camera, man. You know, that trip to AKA you always do, man. It you know, especially this time, it really seemed like you went through it, man. Especially, you know, you not having the bus this time, you actually have to go in your car this time, have to pimp it out, just, you know, sleep in there. So, man, let's just start from the beginning, man. Like you get to AKA and those first couple of days, man. Tell us about that. Tell about what went down.
Yeah, so I mean, it was the very first night I got there. I think it was a Thursday around like 6:30. My buddy Mo came out the gym to say what's up. He was like, "You coming to do class?" And I was like, "I haven't slept in a day. I need to go to bed." So, you know, I took the dog out real fast and then I went to sleep. 3:00 in the morning rolls around and my dog's barking and whatever, and he barks at everything. So I'm just like, "Shut up, go back to bed, like come lay down." And then I realized the interior lights of my car are on, and I was like, "Oh, I must have left them on." But I know for a fact when I went to bed, I locked all the doors, I shut the lights off. And so I was like, wait a minute, that only happens if the door's open. So I sat up and I had a curtain dividing the front and back seat, but I had a cut down the middle so I could like see through it or go through it. And I could see my dog. He was all tensed up, staring at the passenger side. And I looked over and I couldn't see a person, but I could see that the door was open. Like I saw their shoulder, but I didn't see who it was.
Yeah.
And they must have just been frozen because the light was on for, I'd probably say like 20, 30 seconds. So they got in the door and saw the dog and must have froze. So I realized what was going on. And I was just like, "Yo, Frazier." Frazier jumped at them and they slammed the door shut. So I was sleeping with a hatchet next to me. I kick out the back door. I run out yelling with a hatchet.
Yeah,
like a crazy person, and they're already in their car. They were gone. They like I heard the screech, and I don't know if they were facing. So behind it, where I was parked, there's another parking lot for the bank, with the old bank. So I don't know if they were facing out towards, like away from my car towards the street, or out towards the other street. But I made it out that door, and they were already in the car peeling out, which was wild. So now I'm pacing back and forth. I'm angry. I'm like, "Oh, you tried to get into my car, whatever." So what had happened is my passenger side door, I fried the lock jumping my buddy's car.
Yeah.
So the only way to lock it is you have to actually press the lock down. When you hit the lock button for the rest of the doors, they'll lock, but the passenger side doesn't unless you push it.
Yeah.
I forgot to push it down. So I'm mad. I'm like, they're trying to steal my shit, whatever. I calm down, dog calms down. I go to bed. I wake up in the morning and, you know, I had my whole setup. I had my generator and my electric cooktop. So I was like, all right, time to make breakfast. I get out the car. I walk around back. I'm like, let me start up the generator. And my trailer tray is empty. I had a bunch of ratchet straps on it. I had a bunch of metal, like thick metal cords with locks wrapped around it. And they cut through it. They took my generator, my gas can, my dog food, all my tools, my scale. So it was just like, it was a big blow I hadn't even been there 24 hours yet.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's how we started camp.
Man, I mean, and like you said, man, just a crazy way to start camp, man, especially first 24 hours. So I'm assuming, right, you had to go to training the next day. So, you know, what was the reaction like, you know, people in the gym, you're telling them the story, like, is anybody willing to help out? They're like, "Hey, man, Joe, you can stay with me if you know, like the car situation doesn't work out," or.
Well, so it was funny, like, you know, everybody normally, when I'm there, they're used to seeing me in the morning, like walking the dog or whatever, like tying up the generator or shutting it off. So, you know, they see me with the dog wrestling around, and I had a bag on top of the car where my suitcase and stuff was. They hadn't gotten into that. And so I was standing up, getting my training clothes and my boxing gear, and a couple of the coaches walked by and they're like, "Oh, what's going on? How are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I just got robbed." And they were like, "What?" And so I told them all the story, and they were like, "That's fucked up." And I was like, "Yeah, I haven't even been here a whole day." And they were like, "Damn, man." They were like, "That doesn't happen in Massachusetts." I was like, "Not like that." I was like, "People in Massachusetts don't get away that quick. I get my hands on them." So then, you know, I went to the gym and I told everybody, and like, I was lighthearted about it because I was trying not to be pissed or like down in the dumps because I was stressed. Like, you know, nobody at the gym would know it, but like I was stressed. I was texting my girl, like she was at work. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I've got 3.5 more weeks out here and nothing. Financially, I had just enough to be out there for 3.5 weeks. So I was like, I can't afford this. Like I can't do it. And then, you know, a couple of the guys were like, oh, you know, you could come stay with me, but I live kind of far, so it's up to you. And it's like, it's really just hard with the dog because then it turns into one of those things where it's like, well, if I'm driving 45 minutes to get to the gym anyways, and then I have to leave the dog in the car, like I might as well just stay at the gym. Like it's really not worth it. But there were plenty of people that offered. And then I was in my car for 5 weeks. And then my buddy Carlos actually called me and he was like, hey, like we just bought a house like 15 minutes from the gym and we're redoing the entire thing, but the garage is already renovated. So if you want to stay there, there's a shower, your own bedroom, bathroom. I was like, that'd be awesome. So I got to do my last 2 weeks at his house. We had a pool in the backyard. So the last 2 weeks was great.
I mean, that's awesome. And then like, I'm assuming, right, like moment he said that, it was just kind of like a sigh of relief. You're like, oh man, thank God, man. Cause dude, like it was not only that, dude. I mean, you were supposed to fight actually a month prior to that too. So it's like,
so that was the next couple of days after I got robbed. You know, I'm stressed about like, what am I going to do for 3.5 weeks? Like I have money for 3.5 weeks. I don't have money to buy a new generator, a new cooktop. I don't have money for anything. And then a couple of days later, I get the text that my opponent pulled out. So now it was like, okay, do I just go home or do I stay for 3.5 weeks if I can figure it out and then go home? And then it was kind of like, well, you're already out here, stay for another 4 weeks. So now we go back to the original problem where it was like, I was stressed about 3.5 weeks. Now I've got 7.5 weeks and no money. But, you know, crazy enough, like my family made a GoFundMe. Tons of people just started sending me money. I can't thank them all enough. I mean, like they all know who they are, but like some people were sending me like $5. Like, oh, this is all I can do. I'm sorry. $10. I'm like, I couldn't even reply to everybody, but I was like, you don't understand. Like you're sending me $5. I have $0. Like I have money for the gas home and I have money to survive for 3 weeks. That's all I got. So if you're sending me $5, like it helps out. It means the world. But I ended up getting like a good amount of money and it was just enough to survive and get what I needed to survive. You know, Santa Cruz Medicinals, they came down, they said they wanted to give me some CBD and some other stuff. And they came down and gave me $500. And they didn't tell me until they were there. So that was like just really cool. But yeah, you know, all the fans, Skeletor's Evil Army made it happen.
100%, man. And that, like you said, I mean, that's just awesome to see too, right? Just everyone coming together and hey man, it eventually paid off. You got the W. But, you know, let's talk a little bit about like, you know, basically those 2 months at AKA, right? I mean, I saw that Khabib was over there and he was running the practices and everything like that. And those little clips of like your teammates kind of dying. They're like, yo, man, like you send Khabib back home, man. some tough practices. So tell us about that. Again, AKA, one of the best gyms in the world. Obviously, you're going to get good work every time you're there, but I'm assuming that's just a whole different level of conditioning there.
Yeah, he was killing us. I mean, anybody from AKA will tell you, like, that was the hardest camp ever. And as much as we hated it, you know, Friday would come around and we'd joke about, like, oh, I'm so glad it's the weekend and all this stuff. But we would also say, like, come fight night, like, we're going to be the most confident fighters on the planet. And I was, like when my opponent pulled out for July, the week before the fight, and they were like, we're going to look for somebody, like, we're going to look at 55, we're going to look at 70, like, da-da-da-da. I was like, whoever says yes. I was like, simple as that. I was like, I just need to fight. And it like, when my opponent pulled out for June and then July, the week before the fight, I was like so devastated and I was trying not to bawl my eyes out. And it wasn't even about like, oh, I'm not going to be able to fight. Oh, because people are like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get like one step closer to being back in the UFC. I didn't care about any of that. I just was putting so much into this one fight for the last 8 weeks. If it was all for nothing, like it would feel like my whole world fell apart.
Yeah. So
I was trying to keep it hopeful. It was the hardest 8 weeks ever. And like I said, I was ready to stand across that cage from anybody.
Yeah, no, 100%, dude, 100%. And, you know, you make it back home, you finally get your opponent there, man. And like you said, man, you saw it there. It's like, it legitimately didn't seem like, you know, your opponent had anything for you, man. Because like you said, it's like training AKA for 2 months. It's a whole different deal. So tell us about the day of fight night, right? You get the fight night. you've gone through like pretty much 2 months of obviously the best work, but also through hell, obviously, with the generator, your opponent's pulling out. You finally get the fight night. Tell us about what the feeling's like, and yeah, we'll go from there. Yeah.
It was kind of like a mental roller coaster. So
Yeah.
when I got offered his name, he was kind of like the last resort. It was like, listen, we've got about 4 or 5 guys that have said yes. And then they get the contracts and they go MIA. So I was like, whoever signs the contract, just send me his name. I didn't look anybody up. I got like 5 or 6 names. I said, yep. And then they were like, all right, whoever says yes first, that's who you're fighting. I said, cool, just let me know and I'll look them up. Finally, Marcus Andrews says yes. They say, but it has to be 65, not 55, which was bittersweet because, everybody likes to talk shit and say I don't make 55 when I've only missed twice. But I was in the best place ever to make the weight. And so I was like, not this time, but I was ready to, so let's do 65. Make the weight, and I look him up, and he's listed at 5'5", and I was like, he's tiny. I was like, okay, 5'5" at 165, I got that all day. And then I still hadn't looked him up yet. I show up to weigh-ins, and the guy's 6'1", same height as me. And I was like, shit. I was like, shit, maybe I should have looked him up a little bit more.
I mean, what kind of listing is this? Who had him at 5'5"?
Capology. I was like, and they're pretty accurate. So he showed up and I was like, you are not 5'5". And he was kind of big, and I know a lot of his fights were at 170, and I could see why he could only do 65. Like, he wasn't like completely jacked, but just build wise, I was like, this dude could never make 55. He was just thick.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, he's a little bit bigger. Maybe it's time to go watch some tape. And I went home, I watched his tape, and the guy's tough as nails. And, he fought me when the top 10 in New England won't. So props to him. But I just thought that technique wise, like, he didn't really have much for me anywhere. But one thing that me and my coaches all agreed on is his most dangerous thing is he's there to fight and he's there to win. And he's tough. So like, that can be all it takes on the worst night, and of course, like, all my buddies are, oh, it's time to show out. Like, you're going to walk through this guy, da. And it's like, no. Let's wait until after fight night. And then we can talk about how I did show out or how I did perform and all that stuff. Last thing I need is to underestimate a guy like this and get caught lacking and he beats me in a certain position.
Yeah.
So, I took him just as serious as any other opponent, but I will say that come fight night, he's taking some shots in his fights and he keeps coming forward and he doesn't quit. I landed that first left hand and instantly I could see the fight leave his eyes. And when I landed that left, I was like, oh, okay, this is my fight. Like, everything I did these last 8 weeks is paying off. My power is here at 165. My accuracy is here. Like, this guy has nothing for me. And you can see in the fight, we kind of meet in the middle. I back up, I come forward, left hand lands, whole dynamic changes. And so like, I knew the fight was over from there, and I backed him up to the cage, landed some shots, and he shot. And I told my coaches in the locker room, I go, when he shoots, he leaves his neck open. I'm going to get that front rear naked choke grip and run him to the cage. And it was picture perfect. That's exactly what happened.
100%. I mean, and were you kind of expecting like that video of your submission kind of in a little way going viral? You looking at your coach, you're like, oh, get the neck, go for it right there.
I didn't. That was actually like, so it was funny. So he shoots and I sprawled and I got my hip on him, and my coach, like, we call it bad dog him, like, bad dog, putting his head to the floor. So my coach was just like, bad dog him, get behind him. But I already had a setup for a guillotine there. And it was funny because technically I didn't have it yet, but I knew that I could bait him to get it. So I looked at my coach and I said, no, I have his neck. Like, I can get it. And he kind of looked and was like, it's not there. And when I told my coach after was, I was trying to signal that I'm going to get it without pulling guard, because that's always my coach's biggest concern. Because I used to do it all the time. I'd pull guard, guys are getting side control and lay on me. So I'm trying to like signal to him, I'm not going to pull guard without my opponent hearing I'm not going to pull guard, because then he'll defend it. So I was just like, no. Like, I got it. Like, I got it. And he was like, oh, just go for it. And I was like, all right. So then I set him up. He fell for my trap and I got my choke. But then I saw the video back. Somebody's like, yo, we got a video of you talking to your coach. And I was like, yeah, I do that sometimes. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, I didn't realize we were talking that much.
Yeah. No, yeah, because like based off the video, I was like, damn, man, Giannetti was just levels on top of this guy. He's just having full on conversations in the middle of the bout. They're like, no disrespect, but like, you get the W, you get it, and it's a brutal guillotine, and then you get up, and dude, I see you chirping at some of the things outside the cage. So go on a little about that, because there seemed like there was some real beef in those little that like Nate Diaz 209 middle fingers.
It's funny because like people always say like you're so laid back, you're never like unhappy, like whatever. well, that's my angry side. I don't like to show it off. And, you know, when I was a kid, I had anger issues. So like a lot of time not bottling that up, but like coming to terms with it and managing it. Sometimes it squeaks out when people cross certain lines. And, you know, I personally don't care about shit talk, but like I tell my friends, I tell my fans, especially if they're talking to another fighter that's either ducked me or won't fight me, whatever, or maybe somebody they just don't like, I go, I personally don't think there's a line as far as talking shit to fighters. You could say whatever you want, but understand that they're normal people and you're going to have to see them outside of the cage. So whatever you say, you have to deal with those repercussions. And, you know, the individuals that were talking to me were saying some very heinous things that, like I said, kind of crossed the line, but at the same time, I don't believe in crossing the line. You're just going to have to figure it out with me after. Yeah. And and I know them personally, you know, they were in my old circle of friends. 2 of them wrestled on the same team as me. And, you know, I kind of just left that friend group because I felt like I wasn't progressing as a person. Forget as an athlete, just like as a person, I felt like I was on probably a decline more than neutral, but just nothing positive. So, you know, I left the friend group. It didn't come across well to them. And there was some beef for a little while. And then, you know, I thought it kind of died down, but I guess not. But whatever, I was walking out and something was said. And it was kind of like, I know it was bad because they would never say it to my face and they would never say it on social media because cancel culture would have their heads. That's as in-depth as I'll go about it. But I kind of was like surprised because I've had people chirp at me, but never like that heinous stuff. So I kind of like a dog kind of like did the head tilt as I'm walking out. And I was like, that was weird. And then I turned to hug my coach and I see who it is and they're still going. And I was like, all right, it's time to go fuck this dude up because then we're going to let them know. So then I win, you know, I do my celebration, we're eating. And then like I remembered and I was like, oh no, you said you're going to let them know. So I turned around and one of them is a fighter. I'm not going to name names, but he knows who he is. And so I told him, I said, we can do it in here. And I pointed at the other kid who doesn't fight. And I said, we can do it outside. And, you know, they kept going, yeah, whatever. And then, you know, my coach is like, calm down, breathe. I get out of the cage. I see them again. And same thing. I started flipping them off. I said, what's up? Let's go outside. And they were just silent. It was just crickets. And, you know, the commissioner's like, Joe, just go. It's not worth it. Joe, it's not worth it. And like I said, I try to control that anger and I try not to be like that, especially considering I flipped somebody off on the Ultimate Fighter finale and lost my job. So my girlfriend might cut off my middle fingers at this point. But, you know, that was just a little bit, it was angry. It was personal. And it was one of those things where it's like I said, you're going to see me outside of the cage. You're going to see any fighter outside of the cage. And you got to deal with those repercussions. You know what I mean? And I've said this to many fighters before, you know, guys that'll talk about me, but won't fight me in a cage. I can go to your gym or you can come to mine. Like, it's not about the money. If you don't like me, we're trained athletes. Like, we can throw hands and figure it out. And that just goes for normal people too. And so, yeah, you saw like my angry side and had to let them know. I don't think they'll be at my next fight, but if they are, I think they'll be a little quieter.
100%. But hey, man, we're on to better things. And you mentioned it there. Your next fight, man. You've been posting on social media, August 27th, man. Champ status. So tell us about what behind that decision. Was it, you know, how you felt at 165, and you're like, you know what, man, let's get that title at 170.
Honestly, no. It was actually kind of, we tried to make that fight for Last Cage Titans. And I don't know if it would have been for the 170 belt that night, but I tried to get that fight because I was just looking at names, and like I said, 70, I really don't mind. And Trevor actually just beat one of my coaches who's always in my corner. He was my high school wrestling coach. And I tell people all the time, like, I take this game very personally. Like, that's why I hate watching my friends fight, because if they're losing or they end up losing, I'm like, I want to fight that guy. It could be someone coming off of 20 losses. They beat my friend. I'm like, him. I want him next. Like, I take it very personal. And he beat one of my coaches who I grew up in high school with. I grew up throughout my career. You know, he got me to South Shore Sport Fighting, where I started my MMA career. So it was just like, I want that guy. And then my opponent fell through and I was like, I want that guy. We couldn't make the fight for that night. He had some like summer camp that he was committed to running, whatever. And then, you know, I won my fight, and then he came out of left field. I didn't know he was this type of kid, and kind of started chirping about me on Instagram and was like, oh, he should fight a guy that's not a fucking joke on the ground. I just replied. I said, run it. I was like, we can, you know about it. I don't care. And, you know, he got choked out by an 0-6 guy before. So I don't know what he's talking about, weak ground game. But Yeah, you know, this one's kind of personal. And now that he's talking, it makes it even better. It's always funny because people are like, oh, you should never fight emotional. You should never fight emotional. I fight emotional all the time. When I don't fight emotional, I suck.
Mhm.
I'll make shit up to hate people. I'll be like, I don't like my opponents that I'm fighting all the time. I tell people all the time, like the way that I look at it, and maybe I have to, but I look at it personal. Like if he wins and I lose, my dream gets delayed.
Mhm.
And if it happens enough, my dreams don't come true.
Mhm.
So it's personal because you're getting in the way of that. Forget the money, forget the glory, like what I want to do with my life, like you're getting in the way. So it turns personal.
Mhm.
You add on top people talking shit to you, beating friends of yours, like it's just more and more personal. So yeah, it was a personal decision. And then, you know, it turned into a title shot. And I was just like, whatever. If I get two straps on my shoulders, then it's going to be hard for Dana and Sean Shelby to say no to me.
No, yeah, 100%. And do you think he was expecting you just to come right at the game and be like, yo, let's run it? Or do you think he kind of he thought that you just weren't going to respond to him, after he made that comment?
I don't know. I think that a lot of people don't expect me to just be so down to fight.
Mhm.
Catches people off guard all the time. You know, that's why it's always funny when guys are like, oh, well, we need to fight at my weight, at my promotion, on this date, da da da. And I'm like, I fight whenever I want. Like I work all the time. I told my coaches at AKA, I only train like like on a good week, I train 5 times a week, two
Mhm.
times a day. On a bad week, I train like twice a week, 2 times a day. Like,
Mhm.
so it's like I'm still training as hard as I can, but I'm not the richest fighter. You know, there's plenty of broke fighters out there. I fight when I can afford to. So
Mhm.
it's like guys will be like, oh, well, he wouldn't fight me in the middle of nowhere for no money on my date. And it's like, I can't afford to, bro. I
Mhm.
got a job, I got bills, I got responsibilities. So it's like, you know, I kind of work in everything around cage titans. That's the only reason I get to fight when I fight. So
Mhm.
it's just one of those things where I think guys are like, oh, he just doesn't want to fight me. It's like, I'll fight anybody when I can afford to.
Mhm.
So I catch people off guard all the time when they're like, let's fight. And I'm like, okay. I've had plenty of guys at 170 call me out, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. And then all of a sudden they disappear. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, what was the point?
Yeah. 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 Kind of like keeping that same energy, man. Like, where is it now?
Yeah, all the time. And that's been like the story of my career. Even, you know, when I fight guys that are lesser opponents, it's
Mhm.
like I'm fighting who shows up. Like
Yeah.
that's what people don't understand. Like I'm not like, that guy. It's
Mhm.
like I fight who I can. And if I wanted to fight cans, I would have done it right after I got cut from the UFC and I'd be back in the UFC by now. But I told people, I want to fight good guys. I want to get better. And when I get back to the UFC, I'm going to take over.
Mhm.
And everything that's been happening lately has been proving my point and leading me to that point. I think either after this one or the next one, I think that I'm going to be at that point where I get back to the UFC and slow climb, fast climb to the title. We're going to make a run for it. I'm going to keep improving.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. I'm looking forward to it too. So for August 27th, I'm assuming has training camp started yet, or are you kind of giving yourself a window to kind of ease back into training camp? And are you gonna do your training camp here, or are you gonna go back to AKA? Yeah.
I'm kind of in like a buffering period right now. You know, I'm back to work. I'm still like in my work clothes. I just got home.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm back to work. I am training and I'm kind of just like mentally trying to stay off the gas, but physically still putting in the work. You know, it's trying not to have that fight camp stress or fight night stress, but just doing it because I love it, you know? And that was something that happened a few years back when I took that year off of fighting to just train. I
Mhm.
wanted to fall back in love with fighting. I wanted to fall back in love with training, and I wanted to focus on the holes in my game, physically and technically.
Mhm.
And ever since then, I've been doing that all the time, with a
Mhm.
fight, without a fight. I'm always improving. I'm always trying to get better. So I'm just trying to keep that mentality. You know, when I focus on a fight too much or a weight too much, I fall off that track. And it's like so far so good. Like I haven't lost since I've come back. And I've felt better every fight.
Mhm.
So I'm just trying to keep getting better, keep my stress low. So yeah, camp technically has started, but it's kind of like we're revving up to speed. We're not 100% foot on the gas yet. And I'd love to go back to AKA. Right now, financially, it doesn't seem possible, but I'm going to make a post this week about sponsorships and t-shirts and tickets and all that stuff. And obviously, if we can do it, we're going to do it. It'll probably have to be in the bus again. So that'll be like part of my fight camp and sponsorship stuff is like, I'm going to need to repair the bus and then get it back on the road. Luckily, I know what needs to be repaired, not what the garage tried to tell me what needed to be repaired.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, if we can make it happen, right back to AKA. If not, I think that stylistically, this fight matchup and being up a weight class, I think we can get the job done at home.
No, 100%. And I do have to ask, just selfishly, are we gonna get those Giannetti vlogs again, or we don't know yet?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the vlogs 100% are coming. I think I posted already. I posted a video on YouTube actually about the last vlog that was supposed to happen. I posted like a catch up before I left for California, and then being robbed on day one, and then living in the car. Living in the car, I will say, tested my patience more than anything.
Yeah.
Just like little, like I said it in the video I posted on YouTube, little inconveniences of like, I'm on my phone and then I put it down and I turn to the left and I'm like moving the blankets and then I turn back and I lose my phone. Yeah. And I'm like, I just had it. Where did it go? Now I'm spending 20 minutes cramped up looking for my phone. I did that to like a bunch of different stuff, like my charger, my toothbrush, my phone, a million times a day. So like I'd be on the phone with my girlfriend. She's like, "You all right?" I'm like, "I'm just pissed. I keep losing stuff. I'm aggravated. I got to train in 2 hours. It's hot." So like mentally it was taxing, and I do have a couple of clips. Like I tried to keep up with the vlogs, but then editing and putting it together was a bitch. So I will be posting a little bit behind the scenes. I wouldn't call it a vlog so much, just because it's kind of choppy and not consistent. Yeah. But I'll post something to keep you guys entertained. But yeah, mentally it was just so taxing. I was like, I don't even care about the vlog. I just need to not like go insane.
No, yeah, I get you, man. So, man, Joe, again, dude, I'm looking forward to it, man, August 27th. So, again, I appreciate all the time you're giving me. So, before we go, do you want to plug in all the social media so, everyone can go and watch it?
Giannetti MMA on every social media platform. 2 N's and 2 T's. That's what gets everybody. 2 Fight Bros. Thank you for sponsoring me, making this last camp happen. Caged In with Chris. You're the man. Pear Tree Property Services, and everybody else, like I said, that either donated money last camp or bought tickets or bought t-shirts or ordered the pay-per-view. Literally every dollar helps, so I appreciate it. And make sure you do it again for this next fight. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, 100%. So again, August 27th, Joe's going for champ status, so make sure to tune in. And
yes,
Joe, yes, sir. So, and then Joe, thank you again, and to everyone watching, peace.